Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'll give you just a second to log in, to tune in. I know the notification goes out, and then if you've said that you're interested, it'll start flagging it for everybody. Give it a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So if you're not watching this live, you're watching it after the fact, feel free to still drop any questions or comments that you have in. We do post these on our page afterwards and on YouTube, so we can go through and answer the questions after the fact. This is our Ask Me Anything on the HomeFront Help pilot expansion. You probably watched one of these back when we first started in Florida, and now that we're growing, we have created a new one to talk about how we've really changed in between the two. And so today we were going to have Sabrina with us. She is unable to join us today. I'm Kayla Corbitt. I'm the founder of Operation Childcare Project, and we also have our new program manager for Colorado, the HomeFront Help pilot program in Colorado. Heather Maxey has joined us today. Thank you, Heather.
Hi, everyone.
So what we're going to go through today, and feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, and we'll go through those. We left time at the end to go through any questions you might have. So in our agenda today is first talking about what was the Florida impact. So what are we seeing in Florida so far that has really led us to expand this out to Colorado? What helper improvements have we made? What have we learned from the helpers and as a result changed? What does the Colorado expansion look like? Any fun upcoming changes to our programs? And then also how you can get involved. So first, let's talk about the Florida impact. So in case you don't recall, the inaugural cohort was in November of 2024. At the time, we did one and we thought, well, let's just wait and see what happens with this one before we plan anything else. Almost as fast as the helpers could get in, they were all snapped up. And as a result, we've now started doing quarterly cohorts in Florida. They are preset quarterly cohorts, and then we're going to likely mirror the same exact thing in Colorado. We have 26 helpers vetted so far over 2 different cohorts. The data is fantastic. So over 150 families have been served by just those helpers. 4 of those helpers ended up shifting into full-time center positions. If you recall, from the first one, we had an option for a substitute pipeline piece. And so we partnered with a local center. And because the training that the helpers are doing matches what's required as an entry level into a center, it made that hiring process so much easier for those centers. So these helpers went in maybe as a substitute in a substitute position. So what that means is, someone was sick, someone was out on maternity leave, someone left for a different job, and they needed someone to step in temporarily. And then they decided to stay there. It worked out for them so much. They really enjoyed it. And they decided that that was for them, which is perfectly fine. Also in Florida, we were able to offer over $16,000 in micro grants to families. We are very aware that private care is cost prohibitive for a lot of families. And so if the difference between safe care and unsafe care is, maybe you can only afford $10 an hour, but the helpers want $18 an hour, we do have some financial assistance options available to help cover those deltas. And so here's a few of the helper improvements. So when we launched in Florida, we started with 2 full days as our cohort, 2 8-hour days. So this is all day Saturday, all day Sunday. After our first cohort, we learned that that was really difficult for people. I'm sure, as you can imagine, a lot of helpers have children themselves. And so 2 full days away from their children was really difficult. Some of them wanted to attend religious services and they really struggled with leaving that. They have lives, they have things going on. And so the 2 full days was really difficult for them. As a result, we have shifted that into a single 8-hour day cohort. What we did was take some of the items that didn't need to be in person. They could be online trainings. They could be, one of the things was the orientation to Operation Childcare Project. And what we did, there was no reason for that not to be able to be done online. You didn't have to sit in a classroom for that. As a result, we've shifted down to a single cohort day, and that has been very well received. And so that is likely how we will continue to do this moving forward. The second is cohort childcare. So with our first cohort, we didn't have any helpers. And some of the helpers said, Do you do anything for childcare so that I can attend this full day? You know, I have children. We do offer up to $75 in a reimbursement for childcare costs for the day of our cohort. In our second cohort, we were actually able to then invite some of the previous helpers in to help with some of that childcare there on site, which was fantastic. And so this is also something been very well received. Something we will continue doing moving forward is helping lessen the burden of accessing this training in this cohort for our helpers. The third thing that we changed was we created a lead helper position. And so the lead helper is there for a few things. Right now, we're really using this lead helper to help us push out requests from families. So there's a lot of ways that people can get to helpers. If they need them, they can, of course, find them on their own. These are people that we pull from the local community. But if they do come through our case management system and there's a request that needs to go out, our lead helper helps with that. So they send that request out to all of our vetted helpers, and then our vetted helpers will respond back to the families directly. And we're looking at other ways for this lead helper position to really step up in this area and help us expand this program. In the fourth, but absolutely not final, but the one we're going to talk about today, we stood up a quarterly State of the Union for helpers. What we heard from helpers is they want to know, what is their impact? They wanted that feedback on our families being served. Is this making a difference? Which personally I loved, that they were so invested that even if they weren't the ones that were able to step in and assist families at that time, that they were still wanting that information. They want to know, how much more could I help? What is the impact of this? And I love it. So now we are starting quarterly State of the Unions. They're virtual for all of our helpers, so they are free to tune in and learn about the changes we're making in our programming, as well as what the impact has been in the last few months. Okay. Heather, why don't you go ahead and take over?
Sure. So for the Colorado expansion, our applications are open right now for the helper training that's going to take place on June 28th. Like Kayla said, it's just one day now. It's going to be from 8 to 4 on that day. So the first step is completing an application, and this is just a form that goes over some questions about any childcare experience you may have had, which is not required. We just want to know, who you are, some any courses you've taken, your military connection, anything like that. It's a pretty quick form, and once you complete that, you are put into our system. And so then we'll send out some just administrative items. So those are two separate things. The first is a memorandum of understanding. And so this is just a document that kind of outlines it makes sure that you understand that applying is you're a volunteer, you're not an employee of our organization. We'll keep everything, all your info confidential, and it's paid professional development. And the second piece of that administrative items is the W-9, which is just a tax form. We ask for tax info in case helpers earn over $600 and we have to complete tax documents. So throughout the program, throughout the training process, there are different incentives that you can earn as you complete the training. There's a stipend that you earn at the end of the training. And then after you are done with the training and are serving as a helper, there are incentives then as well. So that's why we need your tax information. And then the second piece of that is just your payment information. We do that through a system called Melio. And so that's just a link that you get to give them your payment information, and then we can give you those incentives. And the next piece of that online training portion is a CPR first aid hybrid training. So it includes CPR training, AED, and basic first aid, including choking. And so this course usually takes between 2 and 3 hours to complete. You will get a certificate once you've completed the first portion, and then the second part of that training is going to take place during that in-person cohort day. It's a skills check just to make sure that you retained everything that you learned in the online training. And after you complete this step, you will receive a $10 incentive and an additional $10 if you complete it within 2 weeks of your application being approved. And then also for the administrative items, you will get a $10 incentive for completing those as well. And the third piece is an online training, which is through the Colorado Shines Professional Development Information System. So, our training includes 7 of the courses that are within that system. It's approximately 10 hours of coursework in total. And these are courses on emergency and disaster preparedness for childcare providers, standard precautions, including controlling infectious disease, recognizing and reporting child abuse and neglect, an introduction to the early intervention and preschool special education program, recognizing the impact of bias on early childhood professionals, preventing shaken baby syndrome, and infant safe sleep practices. And so, after you complete this training step, you will receive $40 in incentives. And if you complete it within 2 weeks of your application, you will get an extra $15. And then the final couple steps before the in-person cohort day. Like Kayla mentioned, the virtual orientation that is going to take place on June 24th, and we have both a morning session that's going to be at 9 a.m. and an evening session that will take place at 7 p.m. So whichever one is more convenient for folks is totally fine. And during this orientation, it's just a time to kind of learn about HomeFront Help, learn about what to expect during the cohort, after the cohort, and then a time to ask any questions. And there's also just a form that we're going to send out for fingerprinting. And those are the last steps to complete before the in person cohort. And like I mentioned, that's going to be held on June 28th. And we're going to provide breakfast, lunch, snacks. And as Kayla mentioned, we're providing up to $75 in reimbursement for childcare on that day. And during the cohort training in person, you're going to be able to get your fingerprinting done. We're going to have a professional photographer there to provide headshots. We're going to have lots of training, lots of guest speakers, presentations from joint initiatives for youth and families, community partnership for child development, early connections, and more. And then there's also, like I mentioned, that CPR skills test. And so once that step is completed, you will receive a $250 stipend.
So
I will
Heather,
hand it
walk
back to
me
you, Kayla.
through the stipend pieces. So it's where are we at? We're at if they so after they do their application and they've been approved, and then there's a stipend at the administrative level, right?
Yes. So there's a $10 stipend at the administrative level. There is up to $20 stipend for the CPR first aid training as long as it's completed within 2 weeks. It's $20. Otherwise, it's 10 as long as it's completed before the cohort.
Hmm.
The online training piece is up to $55, $40 for completing it, and then an additional 15 if it's completed within 2 weeks of the application being approved. And then, like I mentioned, that cohort day is $250. And there's also a referral bonus. So if you know someone in your family, a friend, someone in your community that would be interested in this program, you refer them to us, they complete the training, you will also get $50 then as well. And there's
So
also opportunities to continue getting incentives after you become a helper or you're providing care. That's an incentive system as well. So lots and lots of opportunities to.
I feel like I should have made that a slide. So yeah, so they could get up to 85 for doing the online portions. They get another 50 if they refer someone else in who goes through the
Yes,
process.
50
They
per
can
person. So if you know a bunch of people and refer them and they
right.
all complete it,
Your aunt
then
and your uncle. You could get $75 in childcare reimbursement for the day, and then you get 250 for attending that day. Man, okay.
yes.
I'll do the math at some point, but that's still pretty fantastic. And then what happens if they can't make it to this cohort? So if they're not available on the 28th?
So if they're not available on the 28th, they are still encouraged to fill out an application. You can go through the training, and once that next cohort rolls around in 3 months, you can participate then.
Perfect. Yes. And I think we're going to get those dates out. We're going to solidify those dates soon so people can start planning their way out. Fantastic. Okay. So here are some upcoming changes. So what is rolling out with the program in general after the launch in Colorado Springs here this month in June? One is the monthly roadmap. So something that Heather brought up was the opportunity for ongoing incentives. And so some of the helpers, especially the ones who signed up just to do the emergency overnight care, and so they weren't getting as many opportunities to earn incentives. There just wasn't many emergency overnight care opportunities coming up for them. They were asking, how do we get more involved? How can we participate in these incentives too? And so we decided to roll out something called a monthly roadmap. And what it is every month a helper will get a roadmap. It'll have some things in the local community that's available, maybe going to a park, maybe there's a training event local, maybe there is a concert for kids that's local. There'll all be local things, some virtual, some in person. And it is completely voluntary. But if a helper does do the things on the roadmap, then they get points for doing those things. Another is expanded partner opportunities. So in Florida, we only really partnered with one child care center on how can we do that substitute pipeline piece. Here in Colorado Springs, there's actually quite a few locations. Some are going to be doing just training. So they need care providers, trusted caregivers to step in and watch children so the parents can go through a class or go through a training, which is something we had not included before. And of course, there's still going to be those opportunities for that part-time, full-time substitute pipeline work. And we're going to really look at how many more opportunities can we build in so that helpers can be as involved as they'd like to be. And the third is ongoing training and development opportunities. As we were pushing this out in Florida, we started learning more about what is already being done in the area. So we partner in Florida with the Early Learning Coalition of the Emerald Coast. And they told us about all of these amazing trainings that they have, these conferences, and they started pushing those out to our helpers. And so we asked the helpers, if we covered the cost of this, is this something you would want to do? Would you want to go get that professional development? Would you want to engage with your community? And everyone said yes. So this is something that we're going to start immediately in Colorado, is identifying opportunities where helpers can be involved if they would like, and then what we can do to lessen the burden and the cost on them. Heather, go ahead.
All right, so there are a couple ways to get more involved. You can visit the links to our website. You can go to occproject.org/homefront help. You can find the application to the helper, a link to the helper application there that you can fill out. And we are still accepting applications up until Kayla, probably next week-ish, week after.
Yeah, and I think it kind of varies, right? Because if you already have your CPR first aid certification, we have people who already work in centers who are stepping in. And I think that that's kind of important to note. It's not just for people who have never done this before or who watch a neighbor occasionally. We have professional childcare providers who do this because then they want to offer assistance to families for the overnight, maybe a date night, maybe a weekend. They still want to step in and serve military families. And so it really depends. If you already have those trainings, you do still get the incentives, even if you come in with those already.
Yeah. So yeah, like our cohort is going to be on June 28th. So if you have those trainings already, you are welcome to apply up until the 27th. And yeah, please let us know if you have any questions, if you have any, anything you need to know. We're happy to help out. So thanks so much.
And we'll move over to our Q&A. These are the emails that you can reach out to if you have any questions, and then I will put that link back up. And of course, this is going to be on our website afterwards. We had a few questions, none come in the chat here, and that's okay. I had some from our email, and so I will go through those really quick. The first one I will take, which is because it was related to this, and it was, do you have to already be a professional childcare provider? And the answer is no. This is absolutely for all walks of life. We are looking for people who are already offering care. So if you are on those sitter pages and you're saying, I would love to help someone with a date night, I'd love to help someone on a weekend, or if you see those military families that are posting and they're saying, my child is homesick today, but I have to go to my prenatal appointment. Can someone come watch my child for an hour? And you're saying, yes, me. That's who we want to take this cohort. It's a win-win for everyone. We want the trusted caregivers, the people who are already offering their friends, family, and neighbors help, to be recognized for that with this additional training and these stipends to take it. The next question that came in, I'll give this to Heather. Do helpers have to accept any requests that come in through families?
No, helpers are not obligated in any way to provide care after the training. If you're just wanting to, get CPR trained and learn about childcare and not provide care at all, that's totally fine. We just want to make sure that we have a lot of folks in the community who are trained to be that trusted caregiver to provide safe care when it's needed. So no obligation whatsoever.
We actually had a helper in our very first cohort, and after she finished, she was going to go work for a family full time, but then her brother ended up she was a her brother was military. And then her brother ended up being stationed back where they lived, and so she ended up stepping in as his helper and watching his children until he was able to get into a center, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We'll do one more. Heather, the question is, do we set the rates for helpers? That's a really common one, is how much do helpers cost?
Yeah, that is a good question. We do not set the rates for helpers. Once the helpers are connected with a family, the helper and the family work together to kind of negotiate the pay. And as Kayla mentioned before, there are grants that we can offer for people who are not able to meet that pay, but we do not set the rates at all.
Yes, absolutely. You decide how much you want to charge. We had a sweet, sweet, sweet grandmother in our first cohort, and she wanted to volunteer. She was like, she's like, I don't have anything going on. I can volunteer to watch someone occasionally, which I very much recognize that is not the norm, nor is it expected as part of this. But it was just so rare because military families, I mean, we aren't likely to have grandparents nearby that we can lean on. So it was just a kind of a full circle moment. Okay. Well, thank you everyone who tuned in, everyone who watches this moving forward. If you do have questions, please do not hesitate. You can drop them in the comments, or you can go ahead and send an email out. We are still having cohorts in Florida. Those are continuing. The next one is going to be in July. And so those, we'll start seeing more advertisements and such for those. And that would go to the HomeFront Help Florida at occproject.org. Any questions you have. If you are in Colorado or you know someone in Colorado, you can use the HomeFront Help CO at occproject.org. Or if anyone just has any general questions about maybe you're a family who's looking for a helper, maybe you are a community partner and you want to learn about how you can get involved, you can use our general inquiry inbox that goes out to a couple of us. And so it's the easiest way to get a quick answer. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.